Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
one is
Recording in progress.
Good morning, members, and good morning to our guests. I'm trying to open my video. I don't know why it shows somebody else, because I wanted members to see and our guests to see that I'm appropriate for this meeting. Having said that, I will. We are now going to start, and I want to greet and acknowledge our stakeholders that are present. As the chairperson of the Multi-Party Women's Caucus, am I audible?
Yes, you are, Chair.
Yes, Chairperson. We are audible.
Thank you. Thank you. As the chairperson of the Multi-Party Women's Caucus and on behalf of the committee, we are greatly honored to host this engagement session with one of our most important Chapter 9 institutions, the Commission for Gender Equality. I would like to start this engagement session by stating that as the Multi-Party Women's Caucus, we do not hold formal oversight responsibilities over government departments. I think that is very important because we are not a portfolio committee over government department and entities, because we are not a portfolio committee. We are a social activism-based structure that values and attempts to foster relationships with various relevant stakeholders. It is through these partnerships that the Multi-Party Women's Caucus is able to host stakeholders engagements like the one we are having today with the Commission on Gender Equality. Even our engagement with stakeholders is different from that of an oversight committee. When we ask questions, it's about gaining more information about a certain issue. I think that is very important. So that the gender, we know that CGE accounts to the Committee of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. But ours is to be more empowered and also give them our views and our advices that as the Chapter 9, as the Commission, they will then have to interact, and they do have that right. If they want to come back to us on the issues that we raised, they do. That is why we are then called a Multi-Party Women's Caucus. We adopted a strategic plan to guide our work for the term. One of the agreed upon strategic focus areas is about lobbying for an increased representation of women in politics. Considering that the local government elections are scheduled for next year, we express a need to engage all relevant stakeholders about sharing of information and strategies and how we can contribute towards increased women's representation. And in fact, not only in politics, yes, because Parliament is about politics, but right across, and the Gender Commission, the CGE has got also that response right across all sectors of society. But for now, the focus here too is going to be on local government elections. We have invited the CGE to brief us about the research regarding the women's representation in the last local government election. The information to be provided by it will serve as a base of what we must work for during the upcoming elections. We're also hoping that it will empower us about various strategies that we can employ towards increasing the participation and representation of women in the upcoming elections. The local government election is a sphere. The local government is a sphere of government closest to the people and communities. And I think we must underline that, because that is the sphere. People in local government are not interested with this thing. Our communities, let me rephrase, our communities are not interested on these things, the concurrent functions and whatever. No. What they are interested is how does local government, which is closer to them, provide them with services that are to change their social conditions of life. And as such, we would like to see local government being an excellent example of equal representation and opportunities, while also being gender responsive to ensure that all genders thrive. Not only for women, but all genders. When we talk communities, we talk about both women and men. But our focus will be on both of them. But our priority is on women, because we know our history. We are not going to go back to that in this meeting, because women have been undermined right across everywhere. Your voice as a woman is a voice that is secondary. Even charity begins at home, even at home. So we must take this as a very important meeting. We're looking forward to a robust exchange of information that will assist us in advancing our goal of attaining 50-50 representation in the upcoming local government elections. With those members, I am welcoming everybody. We will now request our secretary to take us through credentials and apologies. Thank you very much. Over to you, Ms. Moy, for the credentials and the approaches of our meeting. Open my class.
Apologies, Chairperson, I was kicked out. Apologies for that, Chair.
Okay, over to you for credentials and apologies.
Thank you, Chairperson. Morning, Chairperson. Morning, honorable members and colleagues. Chairperson, we received 3 apologies. One for Honorable Langisa, she's on oversight in Eastern Cape, and Honorable Siete, she's on sick leave. The last one is from Honorable Kanyile, she's attending a funeral. Thank you, Chair.
What I will do is to combine the two. Can we get the adoption of the agenda so that whoever will be talking about the agenda will also talk about the approaches, whether accepting or whatever. So I would propose that. The third will be the adoption of the agenda. Can we get a mover for the adoption of both 2 and 3?
Myself, Chairperson Bosi, I move with the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mati. Can we get a second? Can we get a seconder? There's somebody who wants to talk. Welcome, Deputy Chair. Can we get a seconder? The challenge of not getting a seconder.
Good morning, Chairperson. Honorable James here. I'd like to second.
Thank you, Honorable James. Thank you, Deputy Chair. I was just about to say the challenge of not adopting this agenda, that means we can't continue with our program. What now I will do, which is it's not in this agenda, purposes of the meeting is that we will then go into introduction. I will start by introducing myself, and then the members of the steering committee will introduce themselves, and CGE will, whoever is going to introduce his team. And if then we have got guests will also introduce themselves, because I was informed by Ms. Moy that SALGA saw that we are going to have this presentation, and they had an interest of coming to our committee to observe, and everybody has got the right to do that, even if it is it's virtual. But they know that they won't be able to speak, they won't be able to ask questions. They will hear, they will listen, and yeah, that is that. So I'll start by myself. My name is Lindelwa. My surname is Donjwa. I'm the chairperson of the Multi-Party Women's Caucus of the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa. Thank you very much.
My name is Busi Makri. I'm the member of this committee, the steering committee for Women's Caucus. Thank you.
I'm Dr. Susan Tembekwayo, member of this committee. Thank you, and greetings, Chair and everyone.
Deputy Chair? Well, I don't know what has happened to her. Can we then get CGE to introduce their team?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thanks for this opportunity. I will, my name is Ntabiseng Sepanya Mokhale. I just want to apologize. My laptop, the camera does not work, but I am here, Chairperson. I'm the Chairperson of the organization. I'm present in this meeting. I will allow my team to introduce themselves. I've seen there are some commissioners and then the CEO and the researcher.
Over to them.
Good morning. I'm Commissioner Siham Samai. Thank you for having us.
Good morning. I am Commissioner Princess Mohane, deployed in Mpumalanga. Thank you so much for having us, Chairperson.
Good morning, Commissioner Muraro Nematayeni, deployed in Northwest. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members, commissioners, Chairperson of the CGE and Secretariat. My name is Mfundo Nomvungu. I am the Commissioner responsible for the Western Cape. Thank you.
So those are your commissioners, Advocate?
Yes, and then we will have the CEO now introduce.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Good morning to yourself and honorable members and commissioners. My name is Dennis Matotoka. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for the Commission for Gender Equality. And I'm also with the lead researcher in this report, Thabani Mdlongo, who will also doing a co-presentation with me on this study. Thank you, Chairperson.
No, thank you very much, Advocate, and your team. Ms. Moy, do we have guests?
Yes, Chairperson, we do.
They must introduce themselves. They must introduce themselves if they are in.
Okay, Chair.
And they must tell us from which organization are they representing. Over to you, guests.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Nothemba Sonjika. I am the acting manager in the Office of the Chairperson at the Commission for Gender Equality. Thank you.
Morning,
Chairperson.
Your network.
Chair, that is the PA in my office, Mr. Tabombata. Our network at Cornhill is quite bad. Sorry about that.
Okay, no, that's fine. Can we get other people that are not from CGE, not from the steering committee, but who are guests? I see here, I see South African women lawyers, Western Cape.
No, apologies, that's me. It's Commissioner Samai. This is that particular account, which is a private account.
Oh.
It's just yes.
Okay.
So I indicated, I'm trying to change the name, but I can't because I came into the Zoom with this account. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Apologies for that.
No. Apology accepted. I must also apologize for not introducing my team. I've got Ms. Moy, who is the committee secretary. I have also got Ms. Tembakazi Mpapela, who is our content advisor. Then you'll see that we've got parliamentary streaming. I think those are the only. Anybody from, if I may ask, from SALGA? Not yet.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Mil Voits. I was asked to attend by Nozibele Makanda from SALGA. She's asked me to take notes for her.
Your name is?
Mil Voits.
Oh, okay. So you are representing SALGA?
Yes.
Okay. You are the only one.
As far as I know, it looks like I am.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Having done that, I think we are on our in terms of the agenda. We are now handing over to you, Advocate, to take us through whoever. We won't be prescriptive. You will know how you have delegated who to speak on what and whatever. So now the time is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson of the Steering Committee and all the honorable members here. I'll just briefly give opening remarks, and then the CEO and the researcher will take us through. And then afterwards, should there be any questions that honorable members would like to extend also to commissioners who are present here, we are available to respond to those, but it's the CEO and the researcher who will present. Chairperson and honorable members, we as a CGE are actually honored to be invited here to come and present this in preparation for next year's elections. It actually is a staple of the CGE, and as some of you may know, since as pre-1994, the CGE has been that commission that has pushed and worked to ensure that there is a adequate representation of women in leadership in public office to reflect the demographics of the country. And over the years, Chairperson, I actually undertake now to send you all the reports that we have done, because there are quite a number of them that have been done over the years. We have done those reports to check how things have improved, but we have also looked at monitored elections to see who participates and how they participate. And out of that, the last elections being 2024, we continue to be concerned. Up to so far, we have the same organizations that push for 50-50, continuing to put women forward, and some organizations don't even try, or other organizations talk to us, and the classic response is always, no, we don't focus on gender, we focus on merit, as though if you were to have a gender parity situation, merit would go out the window. So the report will take you through that. But Chairperson and honorable members, what we also noted was that women in the country are actually getting a raw deal, in the sense that 55% of people who register over the years, on average 56, 55, it has come down. Obviously, it was even more in 1994, are women. In the 2024, it was 55% of women who registered. But not only do we have more women register, we also have more women going to vote. So in 2024, once again, we had more women voting. Yet after that, more than 50% of women registering and more than 50% women turning up to vote, we only have 40% of representation by women in public office. So something is not correct there. A lot of women are using their vote to vote for men or within organizations. Once the voting has happened, women are being nudged out for men to get to the leadership positions. We have also realized that there is a whole community that we as the CGE represent, which falls outside of the binary definition of men and women. And that is a community that is actually not being considered by our instruments when people vote. That is not being considered to have supportive situations when people go and vote. Some people still have the old name, whereas they have moved to the new name and are unable to vote. Others cannot get their IDs because of challenges there. So the whole issue of leadership as an endpoint, we also have to go back and look at what happens in the journey towards getting people into leadership positions. With those few words, Chairperson and honorable members, I will hand over to the CEO, Dr. Dennis Matotoka, to take us through the report that you have requested. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will be delivering the presentation with the researcher in this regard. I will provide the committee with the background regarding the study itself, the methodology that we have used in compiling this data, as well as the challenges that we have experienced as the CGE in compiling this data. And then the researcher, Mr. Thabani Mdlongo, will come in to then share the findings of the study, provide an analysis of the party's political representation of women as well as men, and will further give an analysis of the manifestos to the extent to which they seek to promote gender equality. And then we will conclude with our recommendations coming out of the study for the purposes of assessing how far we have gone, how far we can go to really address the issues that we have highlighted in our study. So with that background, Chairperson, I would like to say that the local government elections did take place on the 1st of November 2021, and the CGE historically has taken a position to monitor and analyze the elections, particularly the pre-election phase, right through the post-election phase. And we do so, Chairperson, because of our legislative mandate, which is informed by the Section 11, 1A of the Commission for Gender Equality Act, that tasks us to monitor and evaluate policies, practices of the state agencies, public bodies, private sector, to the extent that they promote gender equality and the rights of women, and to prepare reports to Parliament. Now, in 2016, the elections report was conducted and produced by the Commission, and that is nearly 2 days ago. And the country at the time had experienced a steady rise in the representation of women in politics and government in the three spheres, particularly the local, provincial, as well as the national government. Now, the outcomes of the recent local government elections, in our view, should be signaling whether there is a trend observed and reported based on the 2016 elections report, whether this is continuing unabated, although the country, in our view, does not have a coordinated national program to promote women's political representation and participation by individual political parties. And this is important, Chairperson, because in our view, when we are talking about addressing the injustice of the past, we need to have an instrument that is quite deliberate in terms of how we intend to address this. And this instrument can be in a form of a legislative framework. It can be in form of an undertaking that is made by political parties to really ensure that they ensure adequate representation of marginalized group in their organization, but of course also in leadership positions in government. In conducting the study, Chairperson, we have looked at a number of empowering provisions and policy frameworks, and this included the overall Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, the National Policy Framework for Women's Empowerment and Gender Equality 2000, the Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair Discrimination Act, the Local Government Multi-Municipal Structures Act, the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, particularly Article 7, Article 25.
Sorry to disturb you. The advocate's mic is on. Can she please mute her, please? There's somebody who's Her Royal Highness Princess Mohane. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I was just giving an overview of the legislation and policy framework that we have considered in the crafting of this report, because we believe that this instrument contains empowering provisions that seeks to augment the attainment of gender equality. So these frameworks, if you look at them, Chairperson and honorable members, they are both local, regional, as well as international instruments, because in our work as the Commission for Gender Equality, we have to look at different instruments that augment gender equality in any country. So in conducting the study, we draw inspiration from all these key frameworks, and then we've analyzed them to make a determination whether here in the country, are we doing enough to really realize the aspirations of these instruments. Now, in terms of the methodology, we acknowledge that this was an information-intensive exercise, and we've relied largely on accurate information collected from various sources, including the IEC, the various local authorities, and political parties that took part in 2021 local government elections. We've also looked at media organization and independent research institutions to ascertain their best insights in their election processes as well as the outcomes. Furthermore, we must acknowledge that we had to use other consultants as well in the study so that we are able to collect more data and information analysis post the election reflections, including the election results and the outcomes for the major political parties and the country's 8 metros. I've said, Chairperson, we had a specific methodology that is three-phased. We've looked at the pre-election, the election date, as well as the post-election. Now, in terms of phase one, which was the pre-election, we have obtained political information from political parties' websites of 6 major parties. That is, in particular, the ANC, the DA, the EFF, the IFP, the Freedom Front Plus, the ACDP, and largely the IEC. We have looked at the parties' manifestos, which were subjected to an intense theme-based content analysis by our team. Our team employed gender perspective to determine how major issues of gender policy significance were considered and highlighted in these manifestos and prioritized by the political parties. We further looked at the parties' candidates list, which again were subjected to a content analysis to determine the numerical gender balance and the prioritization of both male and female candidates in a way in which they were strategically placed within the list. And in our view, this is important as the electability of a candidate is related to their placement on the list, and therefore the number of women candidates is partly determined by this. Now, in terms of phase two, now we were looking at the election date. We had our own trained team to conduct the observation of the elections, and the team comprised of both staff and commissioners. And in total, we had a team of about 47 across 9 provinces. Field work was now conducted on the election date to collect specific data for us to assess how gender-related themes and events were observed during the election process. Now, in terms of phase 3, we then looked at the post-election phase, which is largely the results and the outcome of the election. And in this regard, the IEC as a constitutional body was the authoritative source for such information, particularly for the election results, as it is common cause. Data on the gender representation of councillors in the country's municipalities was also sourced from the IEC for various categories of elected councillors, such as proportional representation of councillors, ward councillors for all categories of local government in the country, as well as by province, and by political party and by gender. For details of office bearers for the 8 metros, our team relied on updated metros websites, news media, articles, party representatives, and communication personnel, as well as offices of the Speaker for various metros. We've conducted the analysis through the statistical software package, which was used to code, process, and analyze the data by gender. Data was sourced from the previous 2011-2016 local government elections report to generate what we refer to as a trends chart. And we acknowledge that we had a lot of limitations in finalizing this study timeously. And part of the contributions that led to the delay was the unprecedented delays caused by the coalition negotiations from hung councils and resulted in details of office bearer positions in some municipalities not being obtained in time for publication. So we could not immediately ascertain the gender representation of such office bearers. And secondly, because this was an information-intense exercise project, our research team had to rely on the accuracy and ensure that there is reliability and validity of the information that is supplied by other sources, and that will include third parties. And our team worked in this regard tirelessly to verify and confirm the accuracy of information used against other sources, thereby accepting the original source in good faith. And thirdly, the CGE was only able to arrange for a limited number of election observers, 47 in total. And we also acknowledge that 47 is not enough against the 22,000 voting stations countrywide. So the election observer team of the commission sought to cover a variety of communities from divergent demographic areas, rural, urban, as well as semi-urban. And we believe that in doing so, we have further looked at the cities, the towns, the townships, so that we are able to get a sense of what are the differences between how the elections or gender equality is observed in those cities compared to informal sectors or inverted commas, squatter settlements. And from this premise, our team remains confident that the information that they were able to obtain during the 3 phases was sufficient and was reliable, and therefore it is concrete enough to then make a determination on our report that indeed it is proper. With that being said, Chairperson, I'll not go in terms of the history of the elections processes, particularly the challenges that led to the date of the voting being highlighted. I would like to then quickly go into the findings of the study. Here, Chairperson, my colleague will then take you through what is it that we have observed from each political party that I've made reference to. As I've said, he will refer to the representation of both males and females. He will provide the analysis of each party's manifesto. And our key focus there, Chairperson, is to what extent is there an intentional commitment to foster gender equality within the parties themselves, but also representation at local government as well as national government. It becomes important because if the election manifestos, they don't have that in commitment, it follows therefore that the chances are that gender equality may not necessarily be a priority even when it comes to the representation at local government as well as national government. I will then hand over to my colleague to take the committee through our findings and then the recommendations thereof. Tabani, over to you. Thank you, Chairperson.
Greetings. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
Thank you, CEO, and greetings once again to the chair and honorable members of this committee, chair of CGE, commissioners, and the public at large. So I'm going to get straight into the findings, and from the pre-election phase, as CEO has already explained. So with the ANC, in terms of the initial findings, as you can see from the graph there, overall, in terms of the pre-election phase, this is where we look at the party candidate lists, which we get from the IEC mainly, and sometimes also from the political parties themselves. You can see that overall women were at 45%, and then men at 55% in terms of the party candidate lists. In terms of the manifesto from the ANC for the 2020-21 local government elections, in terms of the gender analysis, we saw that it covers some grounds with specific commitments made towards the national gender equality goals and commitments. The ANC manifesto also has a page that outlines the party's pledges to the electorate. It states that the party will deploy men and women who are committed to service delivery. However, this pledge was not accompanied by concrete policies or strategies to support the stated commitment. The next mention of women also relates to government matters, where the party promised to improve the quality of leadership in local government, including increasing jobs and reducing poverty, especially for young women at all levels of government. This will be done by inter alia implementing the economic reconstruction and recovery plan launched in October 2020. And then continuing there, in terms of the ANC election manifesto, it promised to build safer communities by revitalizing safety committees that can accompany women and children when walking from one area to another in safety. The manifesto also pledged to revitalize arts and culture facilities and create opportunities in these sectors, especially for the women and the youth. Their manifesto also looked at a section dedicated to fighting GBV and improving the plight of women. The ANC acknowledged that violence against women is unacceptably high and names it as another pandemic that should be rooted out. In terms of patriarchy, they do point out that patriarchy is a toxic culture, ensuring that homes, public spaces, and workspaces are safer for women and children. So defeating patriarchy's toxic culture will ensure that homes, public spaces, and workspaces are safer for women and children. They also pointed that it's committed to creating a multi-sectoral coordinating structure inclusive of all stakeholders that have been created to deal with the plague of GBV in our society. I think this is referring to the National Council on Gender-Based Violence. This is a long-standing commitment and pledge by the ruling party that the CGE has monitored for many financial years with limited progress. So the manifesto says all the right things regarding gender issues, women inequality, although details on concrete strategies and proposed initiatives were scanty. That was the analysis from the ANC party list and election manifesto. And then we move towards the Democratic Alliance. Overall, from their party list, women made 37% of candidates and men 63%. As was the case in 2016, the manifesto appears to be premised on the broad assumption that all citizens are equal before the law, thus adopting a general neutral stance in articulating its electoral promises for the 2021 local government elections. They are very silent. They were silent on gender mainstreaming in as part of their manifesto. Their manifesto further refers citizens to gender neutral labels such as people instead of addressing them in their gender, diversity, and intersectionality. For example, the manifesto highlights rape as a serious crime but fails to address its distinctive impact on women and the LGBTQIA+ persons. You can move to the next stage. Then for the EFF, overall representation of women was 38% in terms of the party list and men at 62%. The party's manifesto contains several key gender priorities and commitments which were not included in its 2016 local government elections manifesto, which was thin on gender transformation and the advancements of gender equality. This was attributed to consultative processes with stakeholders such as the LGBTQIA+ community on the development of the manifesto. So the improvement is attributed to that. The party at the time said to promote policy interventions such as education against patriarchy and sexism. This education will complement legislation to protect and promote women's liberation, and will also include case monitoring of the implementation to realize real empowerment of women within the society, family, and workplace. In terms of their manifesto, the EFF did say that, every EFF municipality to ensure that there will be more than 50% female representation. in all spheres representing economic benefit, political participation, and a managerial and leadership responsibility. Every EFF municipality would establish a special unit to monitor, report, and enforce gender parity and equality in all economic matters within the sphere of that locality. Every EFF municipality will introduce a whistleblowing mechanism for reporting all instances of sexual harassment, sex for jobs, and GBV in the workplace. Every municipality will require that anyone who wants to do business with the municipality must declare if they've ever been found guilty of GBV, rape, and child abuse. If so, they will not be permitted to do business with the municipality. Every EFF municipality will require that anyone who wants to be employed by the municipality must declare if they've been found guilty of GBV, rape, and child abuse. Every EFF municipality will develop an enforcement strategy to deal with GBVF and drug abuse. EFF municipalities will build shelters, shelter houses for victims of GBV, rape, and child abuse. EFF municipalities will initiate annual sports tournaments for all sporting codes and prioritize women and girls' participation. No EFF councillor will abuse women or children. That was from the EFF. And then for the Inkatha Freedom Party, the IFP, in terms of the overall breakdown, they had 37% of women candidates and 63% men. In their 2021 local government manifesto, the party outlined various policy pronouncements such as health, service delivery, such as the provision of water and electricity, partnership with the traditional sector, early childhood development, education, food security, building homes, and empowerment of people. The party's 2021 manifesto was detailed in terms of its pronouncements and policy commitments compared to the 2016 local government elections manifesto. The party manifesto stated that the IFP will empower people through skills development, bursaries, resources, and training, and will create self-help and self-reliance interventions with a special focus on supporting people with disabilities, youth, and women-led projects. The manifesto also touched on the issue of food security, and the party pledging that it will support subsistence farmers, develop cooperatives, and assist emerging farmers, in particular women and youth-led projects. In terms of going more into the manifesto, the party committed to establishing and prioritizing early childhood development centers and sports facilities for the youth, a benefit children and allow parents to go or seek work was part of their commitments in the manifesto. They talked about the neglects arguments brought by the sector, unregistered ECD centers with unskilled teachers who own and operate them, the majority of whom are women. And I think they're looking from what they're saying to obviously address that issue, the neglect there. The party addressed the issue of community safety, which will prioritize the safety and plight of women, children, and LGBTQIA+ persons, as well as fight the scourge of GBV by strengthening law enforcement to protect the vulnerable. The party did say that their social services should be easily available, justice system to be overhauled and restructured to establish municipal courts to deal specifically with transgressions of a non-civil or criminal nature. And then they ended on that. The party will continue to provide bursaries to poor learners and prioritize sanitary dignity for indigent schoolgirls. And then for the Freedom Front Plus, the breakdown from their party list was overall women 30% candidates and then 70% for men. The party manifesto was largely silent on matters related to gender mainstreaming. The observation was also made in the party's manifesto for the 2016 local government elections. At the core of the Freedom Fund's values set seems to be the principle of merit rather than privileges based on race or gender. For instance, the manifesto still advances a policy position that abolishes affirmative action and replaces it with merit-based appointments. This is seen in its 2014 national elections and the 2016 also local government elections from our observations. The manifesto, Freedom Valley, has a large section on policies and solutions that the party wishes to enact and implement should it become elected to run any of its contested municipalities. However, none of those commitments made any reference to women's empowerment and gender transformation issues. And then with regards the ACDP, the last of the six parties, overall women in terms of the party lists were 40% and men 60%. We see that the party's manifesto is quite limited in terms of gender policy content. However, the party did outline some general policy proposals of significance for the interests of women as indicated below. With regards to access to health, the party pointed out that it would ensure pregnant women are fully informed regarding the child they are carrying, the risks of abortion and the options available to them. Support for community initiatives that aim to prevent teen pregnancy and provide assistance for young mothers-to-be. With regards to small business development and poverty alleviation, the party manifesto commits the party to encourage skills training and mentorship programs for aspiring local entrepreneurs, with a special emphasis on empowering women and youth. That was the analysis from the ACDP. So if you look at all I think the party list analysis, we can see from those six major parties, all of them, the men dominate the party lists in terms of overall representation, and women are lagging in terms of the party list from those six major parties. And then if we go into the findings of election day, which as the CEO pointed out in the opening, this is where the CGE's own election observer team looked at other elements that are critical or cardinal pillars of success for any election process. In terms of election day, that often plays a significant role in enabling citizens to exercise their right to vote. So part of that, obviously, is we look at voter station opening. For example, from the pie chart there, you can see that 80% of the voting stations did open on time, scheduled on time, without any delays. And in cases where voting stations open too late, such as pregnant women or women and men with very small babies, such as waiting periods in long queues, that leads to a great deal of discomfort, or in some cases, voters deciding to abandon the effort of voting altogether. We look at all those type of things in terms of the voting station. What were some of those challenges? But in terms of the voting stations, it was clear that it went well. They opened most of them on time. A key thing we also do look at is the gender profile of the various staff. In terms of, from that table, you can see the gender profile of various role players. You have party agents and independent agents, international observers, national observers, other voting staff, then the presiding officer. So from that table, you can see that in this case, most of the gender profiles of the role players, most of them were female. Party agents and independent agents there, females were 56%, whilst males were 44%. In terms of international observers, there were more males there at 57% than women at 43%. National observers, 56% women and 44% men. Other voting staff, 28% males and then 72% female. Then the presiding officers were majority women at 66% and 34% males. In terms of the profile of the role players. And then, so that was our key observations from the election day, from the observations by the CGE team. So I think we can see from there, at least in terms of certainly the IEC staff and there's a bit of, what is it called? In terms of there's more gender parity there and women being empowered, we saw that. In terms of the phase 3, which is now the post-election outcomes, after the elections were conducted, we see that the ANC fell below 50% in the support nationally in the 2021 local government elections, being pushed down to 46% for the first time at the local government level. This is gradually eroding the party's status as a dominant political force and perhaps signals that the country is becoming a more robust multi-party democracy. 66 of the country's 278 municipalities had no outright winner, leading to hung councils in 61 local municipalities and in 5 of the 8 metros, necessitating the formation of coalition governments. According to Mistra's 2021 elections report, what is markedly significant is the exponential growth of coalitions over the past years, as the number of municipal government coalitions increased from 27 in 2016 to 70 in 2021, with the highest number before this being 33 in 2011. So this is our observation has been that the coalitions have become a critical part of what we know now, and even spilled over to the national elections with the government of national unity. In terms of our overview of the general representation of women from the local government elections in 2020-21, we observed the following. The 2021 local government elections saw some reversal of the past gains made in the overall representation of women at the local government level for the first time since 2011. So since 2011, there had been gains made, and that's why even the report is titled Gains Made, Gains Lost. But now there was a reversal in terms of those gains. The table which is shown below there shows that women's representation declined by 4% in 2021 to 37%, from 41% in 2016. It had only declined by 2% in 2011. In 1995, women's representation stood at 19%, 29% in 2000, 40% in 2006, and 38% in 2011. Between 2006 and 2016, the net increase in women's representation was a mere 1%. While women's representation remains higher than it was at the first local government elections, the drop to 37% in 2021, 1% below what it was in the 2011 elections, 38% should be a cause for concern. The decrease in women's representation in 2021 means the local government has fallen further short of the 50% gender parity promoted by the Municipal Structures Act number 33 of 2000 as amended in the SADC Protocol on Gender and Development. You can move to the next slide. So like 2016, there is evidence that there are more women PR councillors following the 2021 elections compared to women in ward seats. women's representation in proportional representation seats fell from 49% in 2016 to 46% in 2021, and it decreased from 32% to 27% of women in the ward seats. Although women's representation as PR councillors dropped by 3% between 2016 and 2021, it is still 3% higher than in 2011. However, at 27%, the decline in the representation in ward seats puts it below what it was in 2011 at 33%. Men's representation in proportional representation seats increased from 51% in 2016 to 54% in 2021, and from 68% in 2011 to 73% in 2021 in ward seats. This represents an increase of 3% and 5% in men's representation in PR and ward seats, respectively. In terms of the table there that shows overall women's representation by province in 2011, 2016, and then in 2021, sort of a trend analysis there. And I think you can see clearly from the table that there were gains and losses here and there. For example, there in Eastern Cape in 2011, it was 38%. Then it grew to 43% in 2016, then declined in 2021 to 42%. In the Free State province, 35% in 2011, then it grew to 2016 to 38%, but then declined in the 2021 local government elections to 37%. And what is it, so forth? You can see from the table there what is it called? What has happened? I don't know if okay. Sorry, the screen I was losing it. Gauteng, also a similar trend, and then KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Northwest, Northern Cape, and the Western Cape. So it shows that overall women representation in each province, with the exception of Northwest, increased from the 2016 local government elections, increased from the 2016 local government elections compared to the I think there's a typo, 2021 local government elections. However, in 2021 local government elections, these gains were reversed, with all provinces, women's representation declining from the 2016 local government elections. So I think that this last table really gives an overall picture of what some of the gains which were made and lost by the time the 2021 local government elections were over. And then we can move to the next slide, where we look at overall women's representation in the 7 major political parties in 2021 in the local government elections. The table shows that of the 7 political parties, the EFF is closest to 50-50 gender parity. It's 49% of its councillors being women and 51% being men following the 2021 local government elections. The ANC and the DA at the time were in second place with 38% women councillors and 62% men councillors. The ACDP is the worst performer at only 20% of its councillors being women, while 80% are men. So we can see from that table also at the political party level how women's representation was also not the best. We can move to the next slide. So what were the key conclusions from the 2021 local government elections? We conclude that the 2021 election results and outcomes demonstrate that the gains made with regard to women's representation after the 2016 local government elections have been lost with clear reversals of the progress shown in the 2021 local government elections. Secondly, the findings have led us to conclude that there is a lack of a strong political will within many of the major political parties to adopt definitive internal policies and practices to promote gender equality and transformation for improving women's political representation and participation. Thirdly, is that the political parties that have formally adopted internal policies on gender equality, like the ANC and the EFF, coupled with the 50-50 gender quota target and the so-called zebra stripe candidate placement strategies, practices, usually perform better than those political parties who have not adopted such policies and quota targets. And I think we have seen that with the ANC and the EFF party lists, the examples of that. Fourthly, we concluded that equitable candidate placement practices ensure greater women's representation in their nomination lists and in the election outcomes. So based on that, what were our key recommendations from that? We recommended that all political parties allowed to contest any elections in South Africa be required to abide by the 50-50 gender quota target for women and men's representation as outlined in the SADC Protocol on Gender and Development, particularly for elected positions within internal party leadership structures as well as party public representatives within elected institutions of government. We also recommended that once a 50-50 gender quota system has been legislated for, clear and legal punitive measures be put into law to ensure compliance with the provisions of such legislation. We recommended that the current Electoral Act at the time, number 73 of 1998, be amended accordingly with its accompanying regulations to give the Electoral Commission of South Africa the power and authority to reject party electoral candidate lists that do not meet the legislative requirements for gender equality between men and women. This is still a continuing thing we are continuing, which is continuous even now. We also recommended that the government amend the Local Government Municipal Structures Act, number 33 of 2000, as soon as possible, so that the requirement for gender equality currently provided for solely in the provisions of this act relating to proportional representation be extended also to the ward councillor category of representation too. We recommended that in the application of the 50-50 gender quota, an effective and equitable candidate placement strategy, such as the so-called zebra stripe strategy, should be made mandatory to ensure that women and men are placed in equally viable electable positions as electoral candidates. We also recommended that all political parties in South Africa adopt clear internal rules governing the participation of party delegates during crucial party decision-making structures such as party conferences and internal party executive committees and other structures to ensure that the principle of equitable representation and observation is observed and applied at all times. Thank you. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Chairperson, that was the presentation that we have compiled. I just wanted to emphasize, Chairperson, that we have taken a position that we did in terms of our recommendations, particularly on the need to have a compelling instrument that will make it mandatory for us to achieve gender equality. We hold a view, Chairperson, that without such a compelling instrument, the attainment of gender equality remains an elusive dream. And we back up this statement, Chairperson, because over the years, as I've said in my opening, that we have been monitoring elections and we have been making specific recommendations, soft law recommendations, wherein we are recommending and cajoling political parties to adopt transformative policies that advance gender equality in the workplace. But we have seen, as it is in this presentation, that we are not near the realization of political parties coming to the party, Chairperson, to adopt such policies, not only just adopt, but see in the implementation of their day-to-day activities how gender equality is central in decision-making. So we hold a view, Chairperson, that we really need to start to take a firm position, not just as the Commission, but all key role players, of what will it really take for us to attain gender equality, what will it take to really ensure that we get equitable representation of women in decision-making positions. And such, Chairperson, I'm worried as the colleagues that work on this, that it doesn't appear to be a priority. Of course, we have other serious issues, but we all also hold a view as the Commission. Gender equality is central to the realization of all human rights in South Africa. And therefore, decision-making and consideration should put the gender equality in the forefront. We have learned from this presentation that men in the main, they dominate party lists. And what would be the justification and what is the plan to really deal with that? Because that is something that is within our control. We can educate, we can influence so that there can be that equitable representation. It cannot be an accepted position, Chairperson, that we will continue on the trajectory where one gender continues to be underrepresented and there's nothing compelling that we are putting forward as a collective for us to do something about it. So our overall conclusion, Chairperson, is that we are in definite need to have that quota system where parties can be compelled. It shouldn't have been this way, but we are at a stage where, Chairperson, we have to take such a stance where we say it must be a compelling requirement for the attainment of gender parity by political parties. And as we do so, Chairperson, we believe that then we will see change in terms of representation, and by so doing, we will have attained the constitutional provision of realizing gender equality in South Africa, even with the political parties. We have been engaging the private sector over the years. We've engaged the government, we've been engaging civil society, we've engaged university. This is another sector of society that we cannot overlook as the Commission for Gender Equality. And therefore, we need your support, Chairperson, and honorable members, to help us realize gender equality from your own perspective also as Parliament, to say, how can we augment processes and systems that will really ensure that all political parties really comply and ensure that there's gender parity. It cannot only be the Commission for Gender Equality. All role players need to demonstrate that concerted effort to deliberately deal with the gender parity that we are observing currently with the political parties. That is our submission, Chairperson. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dennis Motakota. Advocate, any closing remarks before we open for if there's anything that you also want to add?
Yes, just two small things. The first one is we have been joined by another commissioner, who is Commissioner Dr. Chanel Naidu, who is our Gauteng commissioner. She joined on the platform and I was not aware when I introduced everyone. So the apology to Dr. Naidu, but also to alert the meeting that she is in the meeting. The second last point from me is that when we were observing last year, Chair and honorable members, there were a lot of domestic workers who came with their employers. And as you know, domestic workers are 99%, if not 100%, Black women, African women in particular, who, because of that change of where they're supposed to vote, they could not get their names at the one voting station and had to go to another, that kind of thing. And a lot of them were saying employers are refusing to take them where they're supposed to vote. That's the first thing. But secondly, some of them were actually saying they were refused opportunity to vote, to get special votes, because special votes tend to alert the employer, because they come to your house and then they, on the day of voting, come like they leave employment like it's lunchtime, and then where there are delays and all of that, then they have to leave the queue to run back because the employer is not aware that they actually are voting, because some employers to this day still refuse domestic workers to vote or want to know who they're going to vote for, or they're going to vote with them whilst they are on duty and then back on duty again, whereas the voting day is actually a holiday that is recognized and apportioned by the government of the day. So it's some of those things that I think for you as women leaders, you need to actually amplify and bring to the fore. Domestic workers account for a huge number of women in this country, and it is a best kept secret that a lot of employers are refusing them to participate, to exercise their right to choose leaders of their own preference. I just wanted to point that out. Thank you, Chair. We are open to take your questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Advocate. Sure. No, thank you very much. Honorable members, I open for questions, clarities, comments. Honorable Mangwe, you don't have a budget to a site.
No, I'm using the new one. The one that I'm used to is not right. So now I'm trying to just to raise the hand and it doesn't show.
Oh, okay. Let me check. Is there anybody who wants to speak? Okay. I don't see any hand. Honorable Michael, and after you to be Honorable Tembekwayo.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Firstly, I have got to appreciate such a wonderful and important and sensitive presentation. Maybe it's sensitive because I am a woman. Chairperson, I was having the question for the possibility that the commission can meet the leadership of their party. I'm happy for those, ANC and EFF, but for the other ones, I was having that plea that maybe if they meet the leadership, but I'm covered if they are saying that they are going to compel the parties to comply. So, Chairperson, the other thing I would like to request whether it's possible for us after this to get the documents. Other than that, the presentation is clear, it's very sensitive, it's important. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Matri. Honorable Tembekwayo.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the presenters for this information. I just want to find out, firstly, whether the commission, what is the CGE, have engaged the Department of Home Affairs and the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with disabilities for actioning. And even to you, Chairperson, to say, can the same presentation be done to multi-party women caucus so that they can also hear from a broader perspective of women in Parliament about this research that has been conducted. And then the following question, I just want to know whether they have a relationship with Ipsos, whose predictions is always correct and on point. Do they compare their own work with those that are the common denominators of doing such a research? Going further, in connection with the pre-election phase, there's somewhere where they wrote pre-elections as compared to manifesto. They talk about pre-election findings based on pre-election phase, and then thereafter followed by the manifesto. But there is no consistency in their information. They give findings on pre-election phase and manifesto on ANC, EFF, and others. But in the presentation itself, when it comes to DA, they only gave the pre-election phase. What about the manifesto information, and why is it not included? When it comes to the election phase, election day, phase 2, observing process on the election day, the CGE have their own trained and IEC accredited election observer team that spread through all the provinces. But the number, you say 47 of them spread through. I know there's something that is said about this, but how will you be able to account on the accuracy, reliability, and validity of your research if you have plus minus 5 observers in a province? I mean, considering the number that you gave of 22,000 VDs, I mean, we've got metropolitan municipalities, we've got districts, we have got local and everything. It's a high number where the elections are taking place. Yet you have only plus minus 5 people in a province. It questions the reliability and then validity also, and accuracy of the information. That's why it brings me back to the participants to say, who are the actual physical, the people that you can talk to, the people that you can touch, that gave you this information, except the fact that you use the media things and all those information that you got from the IEC and so on. But somehow it needed people, the real voters, that definitely had to be engaged on. And then going further, unfortunately, I've got a lot of questions, clarity-seeking questions to say whether you, CGE, can you recommend measures that can be used to address the unwillingness or refusal of women to be in political leadership positions? I mean, there are women who are refusing definitely to be in a political leadership positions, and they don't hide that fact. But are there any measures that you can recommend to us? And then with regards to stakeholders within local government, whether CGE can recommend strategies to capacitate the women caucuses within the local government to effectively lobby for gender-responsive municipal councils, as well as being role models for young women in communities to find political attractiveness. Here we mean women who can speak. We can have women who are representing us in different positions, but those women can sometimes be quiet. They are there to occupy those positions, but not playing any role of effective engagement with the particular communities. Whether the CGE can recommend strategies for increasing women representation in the 2026 election, except that tool. I mean, you say there's a tool that has to be forced, but there can be also other ways that people can use so that women can take part in that thing. And then the last one would be, oh, hello, have you lost me?
No, I was saying.
Oh, you said the last one?
Yes.
Oh, okay, no, it's fine. I can end here. Thank you, Chairperson.
I just want to, from my side, although others will be comments. I just want. I would have thought that CGE in all its research, but it will then highlight that, in fact, what we are dealing with, didn't you see it necessary, advocate, to lift this, that here we are dealing with the demons of patriarchy, for all said and done. And I will tell you why, when I close, why I'm asking, why didn't you, even if you don't put it in the way that I put it, but we can't run away from the fact that it is bare in our faces that patriarchy has been embedded. Didn't you see it to elevate? Because it's not a secret. That's why women marched in 1956 on the 9th of August. So that's just clarity from myself. The others, I will leave you to. I will just put them when I comment. Thank you very much. It's a very powerful presentation. Over to you to respond. How you respond, it's up to you. We won't dictate. You will delegate.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members. Question on the CGE to engage Department of Home Affairs and Department of Women. The CEO will deal with that. And then the question of, can we do the same presentation to multi-party caucus? We would really welcome that. Just name the date, we will make ourselves available. And I think the Ipsos question, both CEO and Tabani will respond to that. The issue of pre-election phase as well, I think the honorable member missed it there. They did say it, but I would like Tabani to go over it again, the DA manifesto. And then the question of recommending measures for refusal for women to participate in leadership positions. I think that's where patriarchy and other situations will come in. I will ask Komsamai to respond to that. And then the issue about what about patriarchy for Commissioner Molalo to respond to that one. Honorable members. CEO, you could start.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think my first answer, Chairperson, let me say, when we compiled this presentation, it's a summary of what we have included in the broader report. So in the broader report, some of the questions, I believe, Chairperson, they are properly captured there, so that it doesn't seem as if we have not considered everything that is raised by the committee members. However, Chair, I must also indicate that we have made a disclaimer in our report where we were highlighting the limitations of the studies. That is part of the research work. And from our research study, we were very much clear in terms of resource constraints. We were very much clear in terms of capacity and indicating that this process itself was quite an intense process where we had to look at a number of documents with a limited staff complement. We've also highlighted that we had to also use the services of consultants to try to assist us to get the data in as much as we can. So we have acknowledged all of those, Chairperson, in the in our study. However, when we look at the qualitative research methodology, Chairperson, when there are certain issues that have been affirmed by parties and those that we even consulted, and they seem to be prevalent out of 2 or 3 oversights that we have consulted or have done. For us, it becomes an issue for us to raise and flag, to say this must be something that is worth interrogating and worth monitoring, because the violation of one principle or one issue alone, for us, it becomes important for us to deal with. So I just wanted to put that firstly to say, Chair, we have highlighted our limitations to the study, and then we believe that the documentations that we went to, the secondary data, on the day when we were doing election monitoring, when we were engaging with the participants and even the voters, Chairperson, we were able to get some of the rich data that we used to then compile our report. And by so saying, Chairperson, the question around our relationship with other key role players, be it the Department of Home Affairs, Department of Women. The request by this committee to meet with us comes at a time when we as the Commission were planning a report launch. We are actually going to launch this report for the first time on this coming Friday in Sandton, where we have extended an invitation, Chairperson, to a number of stakeholders, because we want to share our recommendations with them, and we would be expecting that there will be actioning by the relevant parties. So it just so happens that the committee asked for us to come and present it, but for all intents and purposes, we were hoping to present this report for the first time this coming Friday with all the relevant parties that we believe may be key, to take some of these recommendations forward. And similarly, the issue of our relationship with Ipsos. Yes, Chairperson, in our studies, we have looked at the statistics as well, and then we have considered them, and then we have looked at the trend analysis from what we have done in the previous years. So remember what I've said, Chairperson, I've said this is not the first time we are doing this study, but over the years, whether we're talking about local or national elections, we have been looking at different trends analysis conducted and compiled by different research institutions. So this is just a follow-up or a build-up of what we have compiled over the years. But what is so significant and different this time around, more purposefully, is that we need to have that empowering instrument now, because we've realized that the issues that we are raising now, Chairperson, have been raised before. The underrepresentation has been a thorny issue over the years. So it's a non-starter for us to say there is no representation. The reality is that the statistics deem and confirm that there is something fundamentally wrong in terms of women representation. And then we need to look at these transformative measures that can really cajole women to participate in offices. By so saying, Chairperson, there is a question of saying, what recommendations are there for women who do not want to participate at all, who don't want to take some of this leader? The cardinal question perhaps that we should be posing is, what are the reasons why women don't want to do that? Is it because we don't have an enabling environment? Is it because we don't have supporting structures that look at the needs and interests of women in a particular political party or sphere of government? Because our view over the years when we did these transformation hearings, we've learned that there are a number of reasons. And the reasons cannot just be women strongly believe that they cannot take leadership roles, but there are reasons why they cannot. And those reasons, they need organizations to do a risk assessment of what really are the reasons, and then you are able to then introduce measures to address those issues. That is why, as the Commission for Gender Equality, we have in our Public and Education Unit a gender mainstreaming framework, which is there on our website. We are saying institutions, including political parties, can look at that tool and do a self-diagnosis of what are the ways in which gender mainstreaming can even be done by the organizations themselves. And by using that instrument, Chairperson, you'll be able to unearth and determine what are the barriers? What are the existing barriers why women don't want to participate? So we recognize that such challenges do exist where persons don't want to participate, but sometimes it's not because they just don't want to. It could be that the system itself is not transforming and enabling for them to even desire to occupy such leadership positions. So it requires a self-introspection in our view, Chairperson. And that is why we developed that gender mainstreaming tool so that institutions can do their own self-analysis. But we do believe that there are more compelling reasons rather than just persons not willing to participate. If there are, we will accept, because ultimately a person chooses their career path or how they would want to participate at an organizational level, but it should not be because there is no enabling environment, the policies are not transformative, and their needs and interests as women are not catered for. We had a similar view, Chairperson, when we were doing institutions of higher learning, where a view was expressed that women don't want to take senior leadership positions. They don't want to take professorships. They don't want to take leadership generally, roles in the organization. And then we've realized that one of the reasons that was causing that is because they also had to balance between work and their lives. And we know they have household responsibilities. And that is why, as the Commission, we have recommended that institutions must also introduce what we call breastfeeding facilities, because that was also an issue that came out clearly. And we say you need to be proactive as institutions. You do an institutional diagnosis of issues, you do a risk assessment, then you will know what is it that your women actually need. And then you put those transformative systems and programs in place. Then you will see a change in attitude towards the availability to such things. But we cannot see it and say, well, they don't want to, but we have not done a proper risk assessment. So our recommendation in this regard is that a risk assessment ought to be one of the main things that institutions immediately touch on.
Okay.
I wanted to also respond on the... Okay, so I've partly touched on the issue of 47 officials doing the elections. Chairperson, I will say that again, this is the CGE with the limited resources. We were able to do this with 47 persons, and from a qualitative research methodology, the information that we got, Chairperson, it suffices for us to have an inclination of what seems to be a trend and a gender issue in a particular sector. And we are respectfully submitting, Chairperson, that because this is not the first report, the issues are common. Therefore, it gives us a sense of comfort that indeed such things are happening. Underrepresentation is there, lack of support is there, men domination in party list is there. Something has to be done. And that is the premise that we are making these recommendations. I acknowledge that perhaps maybe the CG can make additional recommendations in terms of strategies for lobbying purposes and perhaps what needs to be done for the purposes of 2026 local government. Upon our launch, Chairperson, we are hoping that political parties will honor that invite, because we've written to all political parties their representation, and we've asked to meet this coming Friday because we want to share some of these reports, and we are hoping that the individual parties chair will share with us their individual challenges for us to then say what would be the best transformative tool that can be embarked on. But we have clearly outlined our study, Chairperson, that one of the major problems is the lack of political will. It's there. Okay. We have written that there is a lack of political will to advance gender equality in this area. And therefore, maybe that's where we need to start. Do we have political will? And then how do we persuade each other so that gender equality can be a priority? When we talk about coalition governments, to what extent is gender equality being considered? Chairperson, we hold a view that these discussions
Can I?
Yes, Chairperson.
With due respect, Advocate, I understand that some of the questions here, in fact, all of them have got a potential of presentation. You said you summarized the broader research, which then makes me to have I'm going to put in here in the meeting what I think as the chair I am proposing. I will humbly request to you just be pointed. You will understand my proposal when we are done with the questions, because remember that we are also to do some other things. I get your responses. I respect them, but just be pointed. Then in my summary, I will then make a recommendation in line with what as the office of the chair, I think from now, what is it that we are to do? I hope you understand, Anne.
I fully understand, Chairperson. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any other one?
No, I wanted to say on the last issue, I think my chairperson covered me in terms of patriarchy, that the issue also was flagged in our report, Chairperson. Thank you.
I think members have asked valuable questions. It is quite a very, as much as interesting, it is a very frustrating, but a very profound and awakening report. Remember, we once said, if women in 1956 were able to march under a very challenging environment, which they would have been killed by the system at that time. It can be that, Tina, difficult as the struggle of transformation is, we are not going to be able to stand up and fight for women, because it speaks to a number. I think Comrade Timberquire is correct, very correct. In my other area as a trade unionist, that was what was always said, that there are women that if they are elected by a Tula, or there are those who don't want to be elected. And do you know why? Among others, the profession and other. Among others, some of them are indoctrinated in their religious institutions, that there is no woman who's allowed to stand in front of men and lead men. So religious institutions, traditional institutions, we must go where eagles dare now. Otherwise, our grandchildren will be talking about this thing. I said in P6, in P20 summit that was held, that we have got an animal called patriarchy, which is very difficult to be killed, but it has to be killed. Maybe it's the how part that is important. So this thing of refusal of women to be in political positions, it has got a combination of a number of things, but there are areas that nobody is prepared to talk about them. The role of the religious institutions and the traditional institutions, and how as women we treat one another. How your sister-in-laws, they treat you, when you are to be elected, how are you perceived? Those are the things I think this presentation, it's a presentation that is very powerful. I want to make this proposal, honorable members and advocate. Yes, we will take this to the multi-party women's caucus, but the last meeting, which is going to be physical. Says Valele Rumin the whole day. Ningasniki summary. Nisnike blow by blow. Because we can't go and, should I use confront or political parties when we are not going to have a blow by blow output of your research, not a summary. Because when we are to correct something, we can't then have that summary. I'm worried when you said you have to use services of consultants. Who are those consultants? Remember, we're talking about transformation here. You may be a consultant who don't believe in gender struggles, because gender struggles are not about women only, are about both women and men, but in the main, it is women. I think maybe as the steering committee at Kaseni Pumilenina, the steering committee will talk to this proposal. I'm myself, comrades, we need that research. So that it is going to enable us. We're preparing for G20. There's an invitation that have just been sent now that I must look, which is also inviting the steering committee of the Multi-Party Women's Caucus. So when we stand there, we must stand there with confidence on the institution, because on the information that we have been assisted by institutions like yourselves. So yes, you will have to go to the Multi-Party Women's Caucus, but listening to the response advocate, I'm not undermining them, but I think that second sitting where we will then get the full closer, that's why I'm saying it must not be a virtual meeting, it must be a physical meeting. We will apply the whole day as members of the steering committee. The last thing, before I close, I'm very concerned. I want the SALGA representative to take this message to SALGA. And I don't undermine you. I am taking an offense on behalf of the steering committee and the Multi-Party Women's Caucus for the leadership of SALGA not to be here. This is very important. Tell them that as the chair, on behalf of the steering committee, we are taking, in fact, I'm going to say I am going to take an offense. In fact, I am taking a serious offense. We are talking about a sphere where SALGA is a sphere of the domain of SALGA. And SALGA leadership send somebody to I'm not undermining you. No. I used to say this even in health. When we talk about issues that are affecting workers, and I don't undermine PLOs, I don't. But there are issues that need political leadership. So a political will must not be one-sided. SALGA must have a political will. It must not be the National Assembly and departments that are accused of not having a political will. SALGA must reflect and show to us that, in fact, it has got a political will, and this thing of women, it is taking it seriously. And I think I want to just and I would love, maybe it's a small country. I'm coming. I'll give you. How did Namibia do it? The president, the deputy president, the speaker of the National Assembly are females. How did they do it? What is it that they have done that we must copy from them? You know, we must copy. It's 11 next door. Then the leadership of parliament and executive, it's led by women. We will have. That's why I'm saying we have leadership is also about learning. Even nobody in country learn. So I'm saying this is quite a very interesting advocate and a very one of your most profound and high and very reader friendly, simple, but they've got an impact. That simplicity is not just, it has got an impact. That's what I'm saying, reader friendly. You wanted to say something, Advocate?
No, sorry about that, Chair. I had not switched off my mic. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. So, honourable members, honourable steering committee members, that is, and you have said the presentation has been circulated to us, mostly. As much as you have circulated the presentation to us as the steering committee, before we'll release you, and then after that, as the steering committee, Sejonge, but it's a shocker, it's an eye-opening. It gives this committee a work to do, and that's the legacy that we'll have to leave. 2029 sibonakale into kokuba in fact in terms of women representation we are serious, but say these things that people are afraid to say, which some of them are a stumbling block, but see to those that are much easier to be said about. So that's why I personally, issue religious institutions, traditional leaders, we must shake it, we must shake the ground. And I think we have got assisted by CGE. Thank you very much. You are released. The only thing is the issue of the consultant. You may send it either in writing or if you can do the consultant as consultant bantu bakuthi nithatha consultant kanti nithatha consultants ezingayithandiyo kwazona, which don't even like this thing of women leading. We are going to lead this country. Come rain, come shine. And as this steering committee, we are going to take the lead in this term. Thank you very much.
Sir, my hand was up.
Oh, sorry, Dr. Tembekwayo, sorry. Yes.
No, I just wanted to say, when you said we are supposed to engage further on this and look at the research, but if we do that with them as the owners of this research, whatever we suggest or whatever we question, it's not for them to respond in such a way that they are protecting their information to be correct. It's better if they acknowledge and say, yes, this is a problem. Like, for an example, when I asked about the 5 people in a province, it's an issue. It's an issue, that one, irrespective of whatever they can say. There's a very less number that can be used to gather any information to prove scientific relevance of the matters as they may be. So it's not for the purpose of them to come and protect whatever they are presenting to us, but to acknowledge and to move on and take our advices so that they can see the better end results of their own research. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Tsembekwayo, and thank you very much to the members of the Steering Committee. Thank you very much, Advocate Mokhale. I wait for our next date. I'm happy that you are willing, but we will have to relook because I think you. I think we will talk with it, but I think you still have to come back to us so that when we go there to that broader meeting, which is it's a broader meeting that is to really get the over and over. And one thing that you must know at times when we were asking questions as members of parliament, it's not because we have got the responsibility of also protecting our structures if they are to be protected. If they are messing up, that thing is support. We support you. When you do good, we support. When you falling short, we will say it. That all is a combination of support. Having said that, it's 12 o'clock. Members are to go for IPAS. Thank you very much. You are released. I will request the members of the steering committee to just for 5 minutes to still log in. You are released, Advocate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, honorable members. Bye.
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 Uzasixelela namaXhosa xa sebephumile.
Okay, Chair.
Baphumile.
Wathi bonke, Chair, kusashe kumel. And Mkhuphi. Oh,
Mkhuphi. Mkhuphi.
And Mkhuphi, Chair.
Oh no, thank you, Honorable members. You know, you will say that I didn't want to put in time and respond on this proposal in front of them. I think we must still have a meeting with them, which they must give us the blow-by-blow research. We can't be given a summary. We want everything. I think Comrade Tsembekwayo has assisted us a great deal, but that question we must get, because it's out of her questions that they've said it's a summarized version. We don't want a summarized version. We want a blow-by-blow research. So I think our next meeting of the steering committee, they must come with that report, and it must then be a physical meeting. That was going to be my proposal.
Yes. Yes, Chairperson. Yes,
So-
Chairperson.
Okay.
We support.
Okay, we will then communicate together with one another through Nomaxhosa, but it's fine. After all, it's no WhatsApp group. We do communicate with them. Thank you very much, honorable members. Until we meet again. Thank you,
Chairperson.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tembakazi, and
Thank you, Chairperson.
Sure. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Till we meet.
Yes. Bendifuna unantsika kona nje uSusan, but it's fine, uphumile, I'll call her.